Hello, everyone. My name is Edward Jie. I am with Gaofeng Advisory Company. We are a strategy and management consulting firm with roots in China. Today, I'm very delighted to have a good friend of mine to be on our show. His name is Karim Alwadi. Karim is very unique. He's been working and living in China for well over 20 years, and he's been an entrepreneur. He's been academic. He's done startups and so on. Uh, More specifically, last month in August, he and his father published a new book called China Phobia, which I understood from reading the introduction on Amazon.com and other places that it's a very unique book because it presents a rather neutral point of view on China, which I believe in today's situation with a lot of conflicting point of view, in the current geopolitical situation, we need a more natural and more neutral as well as a more benign point of view on how China and the US relationship should be managed going forward. So thank you, Karim. Thank you for joining our show.
Pleasure, my honor.
Yeah, could you give us a little bit more description about your own background?
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm a Syrian Russian entrepreneur living in China for the last 20 years. As I said, given my ethnic background, I'm a product of Cold War related phobias. Syrian father, Russian mother, born in Syria, which is basically located in the proxy war zone. Well, also, despite that, I enjoy my whiskey, but with a name like Karim, I felt the Islamophobia for the first time. Now, now my home is in China, Chinese family. I live here. Now, the last thing I want to have is another phobia that's affecting my life. So that's on the personal side. On the other side, why we wrote it is basically we kind of thought that personally having so many friends in the US, and particularly in 2014-15, talking to some prominent business people in the US, I felt that they were already tired of China, losing interest of China. And I said, why? They said, you see, Karim, we really tried hard. We go there every year multiple times. We even send our kids to China. Yet today we can say we don't understand China. We don't understand what is it about. So life is too short. We moved on. That's from one hand. The other part is basically also those kind of US friends telling me that the defense establishment have three words on his mind now is China, China, China. Then I kind of thought that, well, this honeymoon is going to end up soon. So this is on the first one. Myself, we do giving our business, which is basically financing and infrastructure development in the developing countries. So, I go a lot on Central Asia, Middle East, Africa. And I felt starting from 2016-17 that there is kind of starting an anti-China sentiment in areas that's supposed to be China friendly. So I thought the next phobia will be is a China phobia.
Is that the reason why you decided to write this book?
Well, I mean, the idea is what we understand is what is phobia? Phobia is a result of the unknown, and with basically lack of understanding. So the idea is we thought that the best way to start about it is or to talk about it is explain what is China from a third party view. My father, a journalist, a diplomat, and an author, he started visiting China since the 90s. He was an ambassador to China for almost 10 years. He met most of the Chinese officials. And myself, I basically grew up here, an active member of his business community and society. So we kind of have that approach from non-US, non-Western, non-China, a third party, but a two-generational kind of dialogue, and I think the family dialogues are the most real dialogues in our life.
I think there's a little bit of hiccup in the last minute or so. Is that right, Zoe, Miko?
I think Karim's network is not working now.
Karim, I think we lost you in the last minute or so.
Yeah.
Hi, Karim.
Yes, I
Yeah.
listen.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we lost you in the last minute or so. But you think the Zoe and Miko would did I could hear what Karim said in the last minute, but not smoothly, right? There's some hiccups.
Yeah.
Would that be good enough for video, or should Karim repeat what he said?
Shall I repeat it?
Yeah, please do then. Yeah, please do, Karim.
Okay. So we've done that in a father-son family conversation. Each of us know China well.
Yeah, Karim, I think the line is still.
Myself, someone who, a businessman and academic in China, most of my life here, coming from two different points of view.
Yeah, the line wasn't that great either, Karim.
Is it from my side or your side?
Zoe, Miko, where do you think the problem is?
Audio.
I know, from my side or from Karim's side?
The audio is good, but the video is not good. From the Karim side, it's a little bit stuck. Always the video cannot show on our side.
Okay.
Is it okay now? Yeah. But
I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, but is it Karim's side or my side? Zoe?
It's okay now.
It's okay now? Okay.
Yeah.
So, Karim, if you don't mind, start with your father again. I think you were talking about your
Sure.
father.
We've done this in a father-son family conversation. Each of us know China well. We think we know China well. We come from different generation and different experience with China. My father is a journalist, a diplomat, started visiting China in the early 90s, became an ambassador in Beijing for almost 10 years. He dealt with most of the Chinese officials and leaders. And myself, basically a businessman, living in China for 20 years, with Chinese family, etc. So we had this two different experience and point of views as a dialogue, describing his, we try to put ourselves as a kind of a voice that is coming from the developing world, a world that will be impacted directly with this destructive competition. Now, someone could say, why we should care, why it doesn't matter. Now it's just another phobia. Now what's the big deal about it? The way we think about it is that we don't have time for another phobias. Now given the urgent and the real situations that humanity is facing, I'm afraid that our future generations and our kids will come to us and say, what were you guys thinking about? Such a wasted opportunity. And that's why the subtitle of the book is A Wasted Opportunity.
I see. So what do you think are driving Chinophobia today?
Well, in short, we have 7 factors, basically almost 70 pages we wrote about them. But let me put light on a few. Now, the first one, what we call the fast and furious economic growth. China basically grow in a 4 to 5 times faster than anyone did in the history. And that's what we call it. Just think of the Fast and Furious, basically, movie. Think about it that if you don't have the subtitle and who's who, it's very difficult to understand. China jumped basically from nobody to the biggest elephant in the room, right? And that change kind of create an anxiety, and it's what we call it. It's a crazy nation that now not only make air carriers, but also its own airplanes. Actually, it sells its own airplanes while still under design, which is something non-Japan, non-Germany, none have done before. Now, that's the first one, the factor. The second one we talk about is that shifting the center of gravity, power gravity, from somewhere between USA and Europe now to Asia. Now, that's a movement that led by the rise of China, but not limited. We're having India, we have Indonesia, and as ASEAN countries. All of that, the value system, this area, the value system is differs from the one in the Western hemisphere. So it's creating basically that kind of sensitivity in general. Now, the third one I will talk about is a Belt and Road Initiative. I was surprised that this element entered our list of factors driving Chinophobia. Now, the logic behind it is, in short, that this is the first initiative in a world that used to receiving kind of global leads from the other side, from the West, not from the East. One. Second, China is coming with a proposition that is very difficult to compete against. So, the G7, all of the other basically competing deals and offers is complementary. They cannot compete with of China's capacity on what they do, especially on the infrastructure part. Now, the third one, what we say that China has started this. The idea was great. The generals were prepared, but the soldiers were not trained. They had only a quick 2 weeks training session and went to the battles. So it wasn't an adequate enough preparation, now leading to mistakes and mismanagement, which fueled the anti-China sentiment. Let me talk about also a factor, what we call China basically abandoned or resigns from its role as the world factory to become basically world market. Now, in a world that used to see China through the lens of socks, sneakers, and Christmas trees, it came as a shock of understanding now that not only today we are using Chinese broadband, meaning 5G, Huawei. It's also now we're having Chinese made in China by China design phones. We are using Chinese apps, right? TikTok, and also Chinese systems, Harmony. That's basically a domain that has put China in a direct competition with the traditional economic, basically, powerhouses. We have another three ones, COVID-19 and others, and soft power, but we will talk about soft power later on, I think.
Right. Yeah, I can see, where you're coming from. At least from my standpoint, it looks like what you were talking about was a series of the accomplishment or achievement by China in the last several decades, right? Especially in the last decade. And, from the Chinese perspective, they will say, well, this is our achievement. We work hard on this and, we make some, achievement. And why should the rest of the world be concerned about us? And to your point about soft power, right? I know that in your book, you have made a remark that, China has a shortcoming or default on soft power. Could you elaborate on that point?
Yeah. So with that part, that I'm not sure that the previous global, basically incoming leaders, England, France, Soviet Union, USA, will host something what Beijing done 1 week ago, that a symposium and a forum explaining what China really wants, right? The fact that after all of this efforts and billions, all of this time, we still talk about, how to tell China's story, 讲好中国故事, right?
Yeah.
Like this fact, actually a reflection that, on the difficulties that China is facing on projecting is soft power. Now, we studied it carefully because I thought that's an important part. And we came up with something, why China suffered from this soft power. Now, we start with this, China's inherited problems, such as Confucius inward thinking, and prioritize China, put family, nation, country as a priority, and maybe as the only focus. Hence, you see everything here in China in colors with the Chinese characteristics, which prevent from building a global value system and understandable narrative of what China represents today.
Right.
Now, the focus also on the second part we talk about is the focus on the systematic approach of soft power, that it limits the success of soft power projections. There is nothing compared to a spontaneous smile, laugh, self-criticism, and even showing vulnerability, against what you see today as orders to smile, be nice, give this and do this. That kind of system, I think, prevents from transferring this energy that you and me see that when we walk now, me in Beijing and yourself in Shanghai or in Hong Kong, that energy that you feel it through it on those streets. We also talk about the Chinese language and its role in limiting Chinese soft power. Now, the language is difficult to learn, as I know, at least, right? Thank God that I perfected in 20 years. But
you have no problem. Karim.
But the fact that English language becoming, as a global language, Indians are speaking to each other in English. Myself, I'm an Arab. I speak to my Arab friends most of the time in English, right? Not in Arabic. In Africa, actually, my last visit was in 2018. I came back and I wrote about it. There's two things today unite Africa. One is color. The second thing is English language. It's amazing that how many people many countries flipping from French to English. In North Africa, Morocco, Algeria, parents are demonstrating to push the government to change the language from French to English because it will equip their children to have a better future. Now, why we say language is important, because it is the SPV, it's the vehicle that transforms the soft power. Now, China doesn't have that. The fact that, numbers are, yes, last year, numbers coming from Germany that, people's interest in studying Chinese is going low, right? Most of people around the world today fail to pronounce Chinese leaders' names,
yes,
or the most important Chinese universities, right? And that is what we came out. That's a main issue that I'm not sure where is the solution, but a main issue on that part.
And you said in your book, China will not replace the U.S. as the premium superpower. That doesn't, the fact that, or not the fact, the projection that China could overtake the U.S. as the superpower was very much a narrative here in China. So why do you say that China will not replace the U.S. as the leader in the world?
That's this answer might, a lot of people might not like it on both parties. But anyway, the whole idea started with a conversation with late Madeleine Albright, right, in the US in Aspen, 2019. She asked me basically what the Chinese wants really. I knew what she was aiming, at. So I answered that they don't want to replace USA and take its role. And she said, why? I answered that because they are too smart to do that. That answer, I think, wasn't sufficient. And I think she wasn't convinced anyway. So that's why I actually decided to undertake this, what we call it, the mission, tricky mission, to explain why China will not be able to replace USA and become the new global hegemony. So we thought it's not enough to say that, and repeating that China wants to have a peaceful rise, and it is, and it limits its goal to own, fulfilling its rejuvenations and to make its people enjoy good life. Chinese people, maybe, including me and my own family, I think we believe that. But most of the world is difficult to kind of understand this kind of simple, I would say, explanation. So if you want to calm down and convince other people, especially your own, competitor, about that, we thought that we would talk about the facts that prevent China from doing so. And in doing so, we aim to calm doan the Americans, and in effort to catalyze kind of a more rational approach towards China. I'm not asking to return the clock to have good friends, to become good friends again. However, what we are saying, if we understand each opponent, what are the other parties' capacities and capabilities, it will take us away from wrong and very possible catastrophic, wrong, basically, assumptions. Here are we think. For any global power, it needs to become a regional hegemony before it become a global hegemony. What does it mean, regional hegemony? And that's basically for people who studied international relationships. That's basically the definition, is to be twice as powerful of all of your immediate neighbors. Now, comparing that with the US, having nice Canadian and Mexicans, and then fish on the left and the right part. Now, China has one of the most complicated neighborhood in the world. All colors, most of the religions, all the ethnics, very ambitious, as well it have 4.5 nuclear basically powers. You know, Russia, Pakistan, India, North Korea. And we call it half is Japan, and maybe the other half is South Africa. So it won't have that regional hegemony basically status, which prevented from that. That's one. But we also talk about that the financial capacities to cultivate a hegemony also prevent China from doing that. Now, previous hegemonies, we especially talk about Europe, they depended on colonizing other nations. Now, look at the British crown, and you will see what I mean. For the USA, it's basically the US dollar, basically. That's the main engine. There is no business. I always talk to my Chinese friends. There is no business more profitable than printing USD. You know, the same paper that costs 2 cents. You know, we in the morning it is $10. Afternoon we decide to add 1 0, and then it becomes $100. There is no business to compete with that. Now, China's money is hard-earned money, right? It's 辛苦钱, right? As to compare it, USA, and we put that, you know, what does it mean to become a hegemony? USA spent more or less almost $400 billion on its allies, right? China doesn't have that kind of money to do that. So that's one part of the story. Then we talk about the local social contract in China, that between the party, Communist Party, and its people. The social contract doesn't include sending China's kids and young generation to Africa and the Arab deserts to support a value system or its interests. No one in China will agree on that. Now, defending physical borders of China, yes, but sending kids somewhere outside for unclear something else is a big no. If you don't have, China doesn't have that. And if you don't have that kind of citizens that support that kind of thinking, that it prevents you from becoming basically a hegemony of the world. We also write about this declining demographies, you know, and why everyone talking about it now, right? But why China wasn't able to curve the obvious basically trajectory. I mean, it's you know, it's news now, but you know, we knew about it in 2018 and was obvious for everyone for many years. But what doesn't mean that demographic problem means how it will prevent China from becoming a hegemony. And we said it, I will give you an example. China is building air carriers, right? Everyone look at USA and how it, you know, what it say about that. Actually, if someone should be worried, it's Japan, and it is very worried. When the Parliament of Japan asked one of the Japanese military Navy basically officials why we are not doing so, we recorded as the following. So it's just the simple answer is I don't have enough people for air carrier. It requires a lot of people. We are already having very, very difficult to recruit young guys for the current setup. I mean, this doesn't work for us. And what we say about that, the demographic issues will prevent any nations in becoming basically a global leader and doing as it wants. Now, yeah, let me stop here.
Yeah, very good. That's a very detailed deliberation of your thoughts. And when you were talking, you know, and I was thinking, well, so if this would this phobia be manageable by both sides, by China and perhaps the West?
Well, I mean, will this change? Honestly, we come up with a conclusion that we don't see the other parties, basically USA and its allies, will change, right? So I think what we came up with that it's China basically, it's the most important element will be China, its behaviors and attitude, right? It will be the final, the vital, basically determining element. However, many countries, what we think is, especially those with strong economies ties in Beijing, will find it difficult to adhere to USA's basically sentiment towards Beijing. However, what we call it, leveraging what we see today, this economic weight to prevent this anti-China sentiment will be very costly to Beijing.
How so? I think my question is how so?
When I came to China, being basically son of a diplomat, I was, I hear the Chinese officials saying, well, okay, in part of the relationship between, let's say, China and an Arab country, let's say in Syria, like Syria will say, thank you for your support on the Golan Heights issues. And then China will say, thank you for your support by that time in early 2000s for the Tibet issue and Taiwan issue. Now today, China will say, thank you for your support on Tibet issue, Taiwan issue, Xinjiang issue, South China issue, Hong Kong issue. The more issues you have, the other parties, the weaker, let's say, will have more basically requirement from you to depend, since you are the big brother in this formula.
So how should China manage to sort of reduce this anti-China sentiment from your standpoint?
Yeah, let me end up with a little bit more positive note, right? So
yes.
Is China phobia manageable? The short answer is yes, because the fact that there is no global ideological confrontation, right? I mean, the ideological basically differences between, in their own countries. We don't believe that China export its own ideology. So there is no global confrontation or no existential basically threat. No one is thinking to, resolve China as what Soviet Union, how ended up, right? So the fact that that doesn't exist means that there is a chance. I think we need to be creative. We need to have a creative imaginations and political wisdom that is needed to find it. A solution to coexist. Because as some American diplomats told me, there is no room for failure here.
So the solution is to find a way to coexist. Is that right?
Yes, and in a way, we put it in a more metaphoric way. Is what is the solution? We talk about it in a more business language, given the fact that I am a businessman. I would like to kind of give it more light on a business language.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think I lost your audio. Just a second. Yeah, that's fine. So,
what's the question? Yeah, let me repeat that question.
No, I haven't asked a question. I wasn't quite sure if you have finished talking or not. Actually, I wasn't quite sure.
Hello.
Hello. Have you finished talking already from the last question?
Well, I don't know.
It's okay. Zoe Mikko, were we okay? Zoe Mikko?
Yeah.
We're okay, right?
Yeah, I think it's good.
Okay. Let me then, Karim, let me continue on. I think we can wrap this up rather quickly. So thank you, Karim, for your very insightful point of view. And I would certainly recommend everyone to buy a copy of your book and take a more detailed look at your point of view. And also, I would like to double check with you, because this book was written in a very unique manner. It is the dialogue between yourself and your father. How did it go, actually, to write the book through a father and son dialogue? What's your personal experience? So what did you get out from it from a personal standpoint?
I mean, we kind of, I think this is the best thing I've done until now in my life. That's the biggest achievement. And our audience is basically this new generations, right? I disagree with him. I don't want to inherit his religious thinking, political thinking. I see that now with my kids. So that's why the aim of the book is basically for, hopefully the young generation will have a look and basically have their own thinking of the matter, because they will pay the price, unfortunately, if this is not managed well, right? And the idea here is China want to enter this club. The already members are trying to prevent it, are not clear about it, it's out of their comfort zone. Now, the way we come about it is says, okay, China should learn from its own experience of putting the chicken before the egg, basically pay in full its membership fees, right? And be representative not only its 1.4 billion people, but also all of the other basically developing countries. And then basically what we understand that it will be the same scenario of the 70s when China regained its position at the UN, right? We understand that if China starts paying the fees, because today the narrative here in Beijing is why I should pay the fees at the club. The guys don't want me to join it, right? So what we're saying is we need to kind of find out, a way out of this dilemma by China being more basically on that front, getting the first step, and hopefully by having a new member at that board, because China, what we believe that China doesn't want to be a highly paid CEO anymore. It wants to be a co-founder shareholder, right? So enjoying, all of the privilege, the multiples, and the yearly basically dividends. But what we also say that comes also with the responsibilities and obligations. So that's the whole book is about how to manage both parties' expectations. And we hope that the young generation this will be kind of informative for them. I also see myself as a still young generation. So I hope it's a kind of will be informative and catalyze a new thinking about this issue.
I understand even though this book only came out in August, i.e. last month, it has already attracted quite a bit of attention in the West. I also understand that a Chinese version of your book is in the works. Is that right? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, yes. I mean, honestly, we are doing much more than I expected. I mean, we are in 24 countries already, selling in 24 countries. On Amazon, we are doing very well. And the Arabic language is coming soon. That one, because we also believe that the Middle East is also an important front of that part, that confrontation was what we are going through. As well, the Chinese one, we're working on it, hopefully next year.
That's wonderful. My final question to you, Karim, is that if any one of my clients or my audience would like to get hold of you, how could they get hold of you?
Well, the best way is LinkedIn. So there is my name and my all information, and they can reach me on my email. It's krov@163.com.
Fantastic. It's been a great conversation with you, Karim. Very insightful, very thought-provoking about your new book. I wish you the very best and the very success with this new book and other ventures that you are undertaking. You are very versatile, very, very talented, and sits right in the middle of China and the rest of the world. So you are in a very good position to make observation and interpretation on behalf of China and as well as the other parts of the world. So thank you. Thank you for your time, Karim.